On today's show, what a bad loss for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Just a straight up bad, ugly loss.
I'd say a worse look.
Couldn't be worse. We'll talk about it.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That is $150 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon today to get started. I am Chris Manning. That is Evan Dammarell. We have Jake Stevens, as always, on production. And Cleveland lost to the Knicks again. And Evan, there's no way to look at this other than this is just a bad loss that I think does not paint the Cavs in a good picture at all.
No, Jake Stevens is running the X's and O's, but the X's and O's for the Cavs were not good in this game. The vibes weren't great. Media was allowed into the locker room post game. It was pretty quiet in there. Like you could hear, I wouldn't say a pin drop, but like wasn't a very cheery atmosphere after losing to the team that punked you in the playoffs last year. And boy, a lot of not great stuff came after the game, came during the game, and I'd say even before the game. But Chris, where do you want to start with this? From the moment Jalen Brunson went down 47 seconds into this game,
yeah,
I'm thinking oh sheesh, this sucks. Because it looked like a gnarly injury, and I know Tom Thibodeau said X-rays were negative, or no, Tommy Beer said Tom Thibodeau said X-rays were negative, and that it's a knee contusion for Brunson, which all things considered, that's wonderful news. I hate to see a player lose that much time, especially when it looked like a non-contact injury and he limped to get himself to the side of the court just to get out of the way of play, but the Knicks were unfazed. They literally just kept rolling, and Dante DiVincenzo just annihilated the Cavs on all three levels of the game. Josh Hart hit a triple-double before the midway point of the fourth quarter, and he almost had 20 rebounds on his own. He grabbed Donovan Mitchell's chain, just showing him a level of disrespect that would fire anyone else up. But I don't even know where to unpack this, just other than the fact that the Knicks mentally own this Cavs team, and there's no other way around it. If they run into the Knicks in the playoffs, they will get dog walked, even if Jalen Brunson isn't available. They just have some edge on the Cavs that the Cavs can just not match.
Where I think that the only place to start with me is you start with the Brunson injury and how the Knicks responded and how the Cavs didn't. And look, I understand Donovan Mitchell doesn't play in this game. Karis LeVert doesn't play in this game. You can have those caveats. They're fair. The Knicks also were down OG Anunoby, Mitchell Robinson, and Julius Randle. And then their best player, one of the best guards in the league, played less than a minute. The Knicks just said, okay, that happened. We're going to move on. We're going to play harder than you. We're going to play more physical than you. You're going to come back at halftime.
A deuce on you, actually, and metaphorically.
They just hammered the Cavs in a way that was pretty eye-opening, honestly. I understand. If you watch the Knicks at all, you understand that team is super physical. You understand that team is tough, that is what the core of that team's identity is. That was all. It was just kind of shocking that the Cavs at times would show up and match it and be around and go for it. And Darius Garland had some great moments in this game, and Sam Merrill was awesome, and Okoro had some good moments. But the Knicks just were always kind of there and tougher and beat them. And that's the biggest thing. There's tactical things you can get into. There are coaching things you could get into. There are rotation questions we will get into when it comes to Sam Merrill and what this says about him and if he should just be playing over certain guys. And like, should certain Cavs guys just be on the bench? But Evan, I think the only thing that stands out to me is just that the Knicks were tougher and more physical than them again. And like, it wasn't the same as the playoffs, but in terms of how it went down, but it feels the same coming out of it.
More so the fact that it feels cyclical to last season. The Cavs obviously didn't have the red hot start to this year like they did last year, but like they found their groove. They started heating up really, really quickly. They were looking like the freshest, hottest team in basketball heading into the All-Star break, and then they've stumbled. They are 1-3, I believe, against teams over 500 post All-Star break. They're 3-4 overall, with the one win coming off the Max Strus heave against the Mavericks, and then the other ones coming against like the Pistons and other bad teams like that. But this Cavs team has just looked already wildly inconsistent. And I think that is the tale of the tape, too. If you really want to break it down, like JV was talking about it post-game, he's like second quarter and fourth quarter we played much better than we did in the first and the third. Whereas for the Knicks, we're consistently bringing it to the Cleveland all 4 quarters. And you can't afford to do that when you're a team that clearly looks vulnerable and a team that is clearly getting out hustled and out physical. Like, you have to meet the Knicks at the summit. You can't expect the Knicks to play down to you. And like, it's an incredibly damning comment that JB Bickerstaff says post-game, like, when Jalen Brunson went down, the Cavs let their guards down. In an ideal scenario, the Cavs should have smelled blood in the water, bullied Deuce McBride, and not let Dante DiVincenzo get on a roll like he did. And sure, like, yeah, tactically speaking, Tibbs gonna Tibbs. He played 2 guys almost the entire game, Josh Hart and Miles McBride, and, you know, DiVincenzo flirted with almost 40 minutes himself, but just it was a multi-level just beatdown, and then there was just like small mental lapses in plays the Cavs couldn't have. Like, I think of that out of bounds play after timeout play, it might have been as well from New York, where no one was paying attention to Precious Achiuwa, who cut just straight to the basket and got a clean, wide open dunk. Like, there was just like so many moments where the Cavs just kind of got in their own way and they were not consistent, whereas the Knicks just consistently were playing their style of basketball and kind of daring the Cavs to match them shot for shot at some points, and the Cavs couldn't do it.
I mean, that's the part I think that more than anything else is just like the fact that you as a team can have these really good moments where like you think, okay, maybe they're going to win this game. Maybe they're going to figure this out. Maybe like this is all kind of there, right?
I thought they had a shot maybe towards the end of the third. I'm thinking like, okay, it's not totally over, but early into the fourth quarter, I'm like, this is done. Never mind.
I thought I thought at the half, it's like you're up by 1, you go through all of this stuff, you go through this whole thing, and then you finally get there, and then you just like Darius Garland takes 1 shot in the third quarter, and you get drubbed in the third quarter and lose it. You lose it by 11.
That's unacceptable. Like, if like you can harp on the stars too in this one, especially the stars sank, the role players rose, I think is like the big story for me for the Cavs, whereas it's just mostly Sam Merrill that stood up the most, but and Isaac Okoro too. But yeah, Garland I didn't even realize that. I'm looking at it now. Garland taking 1 shot, like, that's unacceptable. Like, you need him to be more aggressive scoring wise than maybe instead of looking to facilitate in the 10 minutes he's on the floor.
Yeah, it's unbelievable that's like what happens with him. It's unacceptable. And like, to his credit, like, you can look at him and look at some of the shots he took and how it helped them at times, and it's like, great. But the fact that you lose the first quarter by 9 and come out the way you did in a big spot, and then you battle all the way back in the second quarter and then just get absolutely outworked and out hustled and out muscled in every facet of the game in the third quarter and put you behind the 8 ball, and then it's like a slog of the fourth, and your comeback is nice and fun and cute, but it doesn't get you anywhere. Like, what? This just lost thing more than anything else just doesn't reflect on them at all in a good way. Like, there are things I think we're gonna go into break, but there's things I want to talk about Garland in particular, because I think he is kind of emblematic of a lot of the up and downness of this game. But Evan, just to ask you to round out the segment, like, I kind of feel like this is the kind of loss and the way they've played since the All-Star break that kind of whittles away at some of the positive momentum and positive energy they had before the All-Star break. It kind of feels like a lot of that is so far removed now.
And that's what I meant earlier when I said that it feels cyclical compared to last year, where the Cavs are starting to feel like they are stumbling into the playoffs instead of finding a groove and riding like a form of momentum heading into the postseason. Like everyone knows, this week is the start of several tough weeks for the Cavs coming up. Like they played New York Sunday, they play the Celtics on Tuesday, they get Atlanta immediately after Wednesday, which, might be a bit of a reprieve, but it's still a second game of back-to-back. Then you have Minnesota on Friday, and then you have Phoenix next week. Like, these are do-or-die moments, and also just, gut checks to kind of, maybe reassure this team internally, and I guess the fans that are watching, too, that, this Cavs team does have what it takes to go at least a distance in a best-of-7 series. But, yeah, the momentum is... It came to a screeching halt pretty quickly against Orlando, continued against Philly after that, and it has just been up and down all since the post All-Star break. It feels strikingly similar to the start of how the season began, where it just up and down and no consistency on a nightly basis.
It's incredibly frustrating that it feels like they're back there again, just not even rooting for them. It just, you look at it and say what is happening here?
It's frustrating because this team is way too talented to be struggling like this, and it's more so a product of them shooting themselves in their own foot continuously, and cutting off your nose to spite your face is the best way to put it. It just feels like a lot of that at this point.
All right, up next, Darius Garland, his game, the frustrating part of it, the good part of it. We'll talk about that up next. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. That's today's title sponsor as well. FanDuel has a great offer for new customers right now with any winning $5 moneyline bet. If you win, you get $150 in bonus bets. So get your buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Again, that is new customers, $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That is $150 if your bet wins. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. So just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. All right, Darius Garland in this game. Here's his final stat line. 39 minutes, 7 of 14 from the field, 19 points, 5-8 from 3, meaning 2 of 6 from inside the arc. Did not take a single free throw. 5 assists, 2 turnovers, 4 rebounds, 2 steals, 1 foul. No Cavalier was on the court more than him. And Evan, no Cavalier, I think, is kind of frustrating me more right now watching him play. I mean, there's moments in this game where Darius makes some threes and some pull-up threes where I'm like, this is the guy they need. This is the guy that I believe in a major way. And then there's just the third quarter when he takes one shot. He takes one shot and is just not felt in the game at all. He can't keep playing like this, and particularly on a night where you don't have Mitchell, you don't have LeVert. I understand there's just a lot asked of him in that moment, and the Knicks do a great job of pressuring him and daring Evan Mobley and daring Jared Allen to make plays and all of that. I get that. Craig Porter Jr. is just not up to being a traditional backup point guard at this point. He's just not. So Darius is kind of the one guy, so there's just a lot on his plate, but this is a night where you'd want him to play up to the level you need him to, and he just flat out did not.
It's actually kind of funny when you mention the Knicks defended Garland well, and they dared Allen and Mobley to beat them on their own. That's the exact recipe New York had last postseason, but more so the attention was on Mitchell, and rightfully so. And they dared Garland and Mobley and Allen to beat them, and all three shrank. But now they could just turn up the screws on Garland with Mitchell being sidelined, and it made it much easier to defend this Cavs team. But yeah, like you said, he has been incredibly frustrating. We can continue to mention, and it's fair. He has lost 15 pounds. He's still trying to maybe work his way back. But there are moments, like you said tonight, where he is being the dude the Cavs need him to be. He stepped up spectacularly. An exclamation point play is he picked up his dribble, passed it to Dean Wade, and Dean Wade set a screen while passing it to him, and immediately Garland just rips a three and makes it to close the first half. And I'm thinking okay, he's got a little bit of the sauce tonight after a little bit of a topsy-turvy start to the game. And I thought facilitating wise and playmaking wise, he was careful and mindful with the ball, but once again, Darius dribbling into traffic and kind of just becoming a deer in headlights kind of moment where he realizes like, oh, I have nothing here, and he passes it back and there's nobody there. That turnover with like maybe a little bit more than 60 seconds to go was the nail in the coffin for the Cavs. Sure, Josh Hart hitting that three on the other end and then pulling Donovan Mitchell's chain really was the nail in the actual coffin, but like, I'm just get the goose is cooked. Like you can't have those moments there, and Garland just cannot continue to continuously string it together, and he just kind of gets tight when the spotlight's brightest. And I told you this heading into this episode as we're recording, like Donovan Mitchell by and far the best player on this Cavs team, but like on a nightly basis, who can you tell me with a straight face is the second best player every single night for the Cavs? Because it sure as heck isn't Darius Garland, because there's nights he looks great, there's nights he just comes out so flat and he's so one note and so unremarkable, and then there's moments he's all throughout he's just wildly inconsistent, and this was just like swinging all over the Rubicon of just like what Garland can and cannot be as a player. And the cannot be part is, like you said, one shot, one assist, one steal in the third quarter. You got to be way more assertive than that, especially if you are playing almost the entire third quarter.
I am genuinely like empathetic for him in this in a specific way of like, I very much kind of, his season has just been hard. Like there's just no way around it.
Yeah,
there's no,
of course, but
like it did, but it doesn't excuse the fact that like they just need more from him right now. That's like kind of the give and take here with him. It's like there's even moments in this game, and there's been moments we've seen where I'm like, is he gonna turn the corner here? Has he finally like gotten past some of what's bothering him? And then instead it's like he regresses back. And then even in this game, it's like in the context of this one game, he takes those threes and it's like, I'm ready to believe again. I'm ready to be sure that he's like figured it out. And then it's like, oh, what if I then just am not again?
And the issue is he's not a rookie. He's not a sophomore player.
He's the highest paid player on the team.
He's the highest paid player on the team, and it's his 5th year in the NBA. He's got to start putting it together, especially if the Cavs are paying and treating him like the franchise guy, and he needs to start leveling up and living up to that expectation instead of just showing us the flashes of potential. Yeah, I empathize too. He has had a wildly weird year when it comes to injuries and just like stuff pulling him in and out of the lineups and rotation, and he has really struggled to find his fit in Cleveland's kind of quote-unquote new offensive identity, where it's just spraying and praying three-pointers and hoping most of them fall. But I don't know if it's obviously 100% not him. I think it goes on coaching. I think it comes on to his teammates and maybe the fit of just like how the coaching staff kind of tactically prepares this team. But Garland just has not stepped up in a way that you would hope he would. And this was like one of those games you really needed him to step up, because externally there's going to be a lot of noise around this team until they play Boston, and maybe they beat the Celtics and they kind of quiet things for a bit. But this saw the Cavs go from 2nd to 3rd place in the East. Milwaukee leapfrogged them. Now the Knicks are kind of with breathing down their necks a little bit between 3 and 4. This will have implications for the Eastern Conference standings, and the Cavs just failed to perform when they needed them to, and he was outplayed by Sam Barrell and Deuce McBride, guys that are making a whole lot less than he is.
Let's talk about Sam Merrill after this. If there's one to me, there's a couple bright spots to this game. Not a whole lot of them.
He's the only one to me. He was awesome.
I would say that here the other ones I would shout is it's really one other one. I just think Isaac Okoro was like, just that guy's good. And I understand he missed 2 threes in this game, but he has 17 points. He's 7 of 13 from the field. He has 4 assists. He only turns the ball over once. He is not phased. And like, if you want to tell me who on this team is not phased, he is on the list of guys who are not going to back down. And like, that is something.
Yeah, it's something. And Okoro, to answer the question I asked before, who is the second best player on this Cavs team?
Well, you kind of didn't. I don't know if you asked it.
It's not Darius. I think it's Isaac Okoro, just because he's at least showing consistent effort on both ends of the floor, and he is playing within the offense that is producing positive results. Even if, like you said, the shot wasn't falling from the perimeter tonight, at least he was trying to make the Knicks pay from sacking off of him and leaving him on an island out there when they were closing in on the paint instead.
If you want to say who is the, it's hard to say. I think the answer for second best is still in terms of talent. Talent's I think dependable Okoro might be the second most dependable Mitchell right now. It's that's where I would go with that.
That's what I'm getting at with best at this juncture is if you're entering a playoff series right now, who's the number 2 or the second best player consistency wise or effort wise for the Cavs? It's Isaac Okoro, which is no disrespect to Isaac Okoro, but certainly a lot more telling about the other guys on this roster too.
All right, after this, Sam Merrill, I think he should just be playing for the Cavs more. Talk about him. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at PrizePicks. It's demon time on PrizePicks. That's a phrase I never thought I'd say. You can now earn up to 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks, so you can turn $10 into $1,000. Demons and goblins are the newest and most exciting way to play at PrizePicks. Squares marked with red demons or green goblins get you different payouts. You now earn up to 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks. You can also play along some of PrizePicks' favorite players like the rapper Meek Mill and comedian Andrew Schultz under the community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries from some of the biggest names in the PrizePicks community each week. PrizePicks also has injury insurance so that your entries stay in play even if one of your picks gets injured. That's for football and basketball games. PrizePicks is really simple to play. You can make your picks and submit your entry in less than 60 seconds. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedInNBA and use code LockedInNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. That is prizepicks.com/LockedInNBA and use code LockedInNBA for that first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks. Pick more, pick less. It is that easy. Okay, so Sam Merrill. Evan, I got to tell you, I just think he has to play. I understand... the argument, if you want to, well, actually don't even understand. If you wanted to say this was a better team and that they had a rock solid 9 guys that were unquestioned, and that he didn't offer you a ton of value because his thing just isn't that expansive, I could understand that argument if that was the case. That's not the case. This is the best moving shooter on the team. He clearly makes the offense more dynamic. Defenses have to respect him. He is not a great defender, but he competes and is good enough. And frankly, right now, you're not getting enough out of George Niang. You're not getting enough out of Dean Wade. This team was better when Sam Merrill was playing. Also, some of that was they were spaced out and playing around Mitchell in a certain way. I understand you can't play that exact same way right now when you are fully healthy and you're trying to find whatever your identity is going to be for the stretch run here. But you know who can help you get closer to playing a version of the kind of basketball that led you on a winning streak? It's Sam Merrill. Just play him.
The guy who is a key part of that winning streak, Sam Merrill.
But I don't understand. JB Bickerstaff has said a lot about how, it's hard to find minutes for guys. I think he has some loyalty to certain guys.
Yeah.
At this point,
people condescendingly explain oh, Max Strus, Isaac Okoro, Karis LeVert, Donovan Mitchell all ahead of Sam Merrill, and then there's only so many minutes to go around. But basketball's positionless at this point too. If you find a guy who can give you something, and I know I'm eating crow a little bit on this because I said maybe you're doing the ramp up to the postseason, but this is the debate we had between George Niang and Dean Wade. But in this game against the Knicks, neither of them gave you the juice the Cavs needed, whereas Sam Merrill did. And I was befuddled why Sam Merrill is on the bench for certain possessions because, he has such a simple game and approach to his game where teams leave him wide open because he, like you said, is a dynamic movement shooter and he is the 5th option on this offense, but he's moving and constantly just kind of being aware of where he needs to be on the floor because opposing defenses are going to keep overcorrecting to, maybe his other opponents because at this point I'd assume Sam Merrill's at least on the scouting report for most opposing teams, but Merrill is benefiting from the fact of being that 5th option because he is wide open on some of those 3-point attempts he took against the Knicks. And yeah, Garland hit an absolutely insane 3-pointer to end the first half that I really thought it was a nice spark for the Cavs, or the Jared Allen to Evan Mobley back to the Evan Mobley to Jared Allen, back to Evan Mobley. Lob pass with about 2 minutes ago. Another big spark play. But the guy who like consistently brought it for you from like an offensive spark point was Sam Merrill. And I agree with you. Like, I will say I was wrong, but George Niang's shot just is not there. He is not hitting it. Dean Wade won't take it enough, and people say, oh, he plays defense. Defense doesn't matter when it's like your 7th, 8th, 9th man. You need a guy who can just be a spark plug for you and give you some quick, easy buckets, and Sam Merrill, more often than not, has done that. And if you keep needing to say you need to find a way to find him minutes, this game against the Knicks is like a carbon example of like why you need to just give him minutes when this team is healthy, because he just benefits everybody else on this team spacing-wise.
Yeah, he was the counter to everything the Knicks are doing, and it made things easier. Him and Strus should just be playing lots of minutes and figuring out ways to do them. And like where I disagree slightly is like I do think Wade's defense is going to matter at some point, because he's a guy you can like. He did a really good job on DeRozan just last week. But if he's not shooting,
but
then
in
like
a playoff series in the limited minutes available, you're going to be asking Isaac Okoro to be doing that a lot more than you do Dean Wade.
Sure.
Or
But my answer,
or Evan Mobley or Jared Allen or anybody else.
LeVert's also like, honestly, LeVert is a worse defender than Wade, and I also just like what he's good at is just not going to matter as much when you're in the playoffs, and like it's a Mitchell and Garland handling the ball show. Like that is just the reality.
Yeah,
like
fair.
honestly, like the guys that I feel the most confident in right now about like just functioning and making this team just like work on a regular basis. It's your 5 starters, so Garland, and I just will be a Darius Garland believer until like I have to, but like it's not looking great right now for the way he's played for this season. Mitchell, best player in the team, MVP candidate. Strus, dependable as all heck. Mobley, Allen, some stuff to figure out with the 2 bigs, but that's a conversation we'll get to at some point, I think. Then it's Okoro.
That's an end of season conversation.
I think even just like now how to like function with it is worth getting into, but we'll get there. We'll get there. But then on the bench, it's Okoro, it's Merrill, and then like it's Wade, and then like I'm not super interested in LeVert and Niang at this point. And like LeVert has a role, I get that, and like and he could play himself ahead of LeVert, and I think he would be ahead of Wade. But like right now, like the functional way is just like give me the shooting and the guys around your 2 guards, and like just lean into that version of this team. That's the kind of what I would want to see more than anything else.
And other than Isaac Okoro, of those rotational bench guys, it's Okoro Wade, or excuse me, Okoro Merrill Wade for me in terms of just like my trust factor right now in terms of what they give you. Like I think Okoro is I think he is Cleveland's best point of attack defender. You throw him at the best opposing perimeter player. I would assume if Jalen Brunson doesn't get hurt, the game plan, especially with Okoro starting, was to match Brunson minute for minute with Okoro and just really make it life very frustrating for him the entire night. But it, you hope that those 8 are enough to maybe carry you in a postseason series. And like you said, like LeVert, at least in my eyes, would be the odd one looking out just because of the defensive concerns. I think maybe some of the stuff in the juice he gives you off ball helps a little bit too. Maybe like there's other more lines for him, but the elephant in the room is just like George Niang just kind of is not giving you what you need right now, and opposing teams are just picking him apart on defense. Like they're isolating him, they're just calling his number, and they're forcing him to defend in space, picking him apart, getting clean looks at the basket, or just breaking him down entirely in isolation. And if you're the Cavs, you cannot afford to roll with that in the playoffs.
It's gonna be cool when Sam Merrill like doesn't play against Boston on Tuesday. Because honestly, like JB Bickerstaff has done like a really good job with this team in a lot of ways, but like he
has on vets and guys.
Well, it's not even the vets thing. It's the trust thing, and then he has like a certain style I think he wants to play, which there's some merit to it, but there's just so much evidence that like Sam Merrill makes this team better, and I think you just got to find a way to play him at this point. Like it's kind of indefensible to me that he shouldn't be playing 15-20 minutes a night.
Yeah, and like I said before, you can condescendingly say like, oh, Okoro, Strus, LeVert, Mitchell are all ahead of Merrill when this team is healthy, but you can easily cut some minutes from LeVert, Niang, and shoot maybe even Okoro if you don't want to run Isaac into the ground some nights, and just give yourself some breathing room and just give your guys some run. Like, I'm still stunned Sam didn't play very much after, a double overtime loss to the Bulls. Instead, JB condensed his rotation entirely. Like, that one broke me a little bit. So, yeah, I also would not be surprised if, like, Mitchell and Levert or one of them are back against Boston on Tuesday. Merrill doesn't play, or we see one of those. Sam Merrill gets 6 to 7 minutes, doesn't have a rhythm or flow offensively, and then continues to dwindle rotation-wise. And he did say post-game he feels like he's shown enough to play for this team on a night-to-night basis.
Which he said like 9 times this year. Every time he gets asked the same question, it's like, I
empathize because he like let out like a sigh. He's like, yeah.
Oh, this again?
But, yeah, like this question again. But then he also just like says the right thing where he's like, there are also guys that are just ahead of me in the rotation too. Like, he is realistic about it, but I agree. Like, it has to be frustrating to know like you can give this team a little juice and you wish you just had a consistent opportunity to do so. But
can end there.
Yeah, just pull the
Straight
cord,
bad
man.
loss.
This was a bad loss. This was what'd you call the worst loss of the season? I think it's either that or the Portland loss closer to the start of the year for me. Because that Blazers loss was bad.
This one in the moment feels pretty bad.
Yeah, in the moment, this one feels pretty bad. But I remember like
Did Duop Reith grab Donovan Mitchell's chain? I don't think so.
That's true. But yeah, congrats to the New York Knicks. You still own the Cleveland Cavaliers on a mental level. Like
up next for Cleveland,
the Boston Celtics,
the winners of 11 straight.
The team that was beating the Warriors by more points than I can count at one point. So,
very good team.
Just don't sag off at Jaylen Brown, and maybe you'll have a better shot.
Yeah. You know that. All right, so that's going to be that. We'll be back on Tuesday ahead of that game to talk about the state of the East. We'll know more about Brunson's injury at that point. We'll talk through playoff possibilities for the Cavs and like who you'd actually want to see. Jackson Gatlin asked me this on Locked In NBA, so we're going to blow that out here. Talk to you then. Thanks again to Jake Stevens as always. What a bad loss for the Cavs to start a very big week for them with the Knicks, the Celtics, the Hawks in there, and then the Wolves on Friday. Not a great start for a busy, important week of Cavs basketball. We'll talk to you tomorrow to get you ready for the next chapter.